Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, the Education Coordinator for Marlene's Market and Deli. Tonight's special guest that we have with us is Lisha Song. She is a local trauma therapist and owner of Sacred Healing Place and book author. And she's speaking on the topic this evening, Love What Hurts. Thank you so much, Lisha, for being here with us.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for having me again.
Yay!
Yes, yes. Yeah, these are fun. So, love what hurts. Yes. So, like Elizabeth said, I've been a trauma therapist for about 23 years. Been in Tacoma in private practice. This is my 16th year. And I just felt like it was time to write a book about my experiences with healing from trauma personally, and then also facilitating healing for others. So I did that. I wrote a book, Love What Hurts, a guide for healing emotional wounds and following your intuition. And the book, a lot of people ask they tell me that they love that title. It's very provocative, and that's why I chose that title, because it's pretty much the opposite of what most of us do. We don't love what hurts us, especially if it's within us. We tend to want to avoid, compartmentalize, and detach from what hurts us. But what I have learned from my experience as a therapist for 23 years and as a human being for nearly 53 years on the planet, I have witnessed over and over and over again that when we can express compassion or love to those wounded parts of us, the parts of us that are shameful, that are rageful, that are guilt-ridden, that are in deep sadness or grief, those parts of us that we would rather not look at or address. But if we do with a little bit of compassion and eventually love, then the pain and the hurt does start to subside. And when we can engage with those parts of us, it's like, this is how I describe it. Those parts of us, guilt, shame, anger, rage, they become our children that we are now going to parent. So we become the parent of those parts. And like a hurt, neglected, or like a hurt or neglected child, your wounded, hurt, neglected parts need attention and compassion. So, for example, when a child comes running up to you crying because they fell down on the playground and they skinned their knee, if you respond with an angry or mocking tone and order that child to suck back their tears and go back and play, what message is that, or what messages is that child taking away with them? Messages like, my feelings aren't real, my feelings don't hurt, don't matter, my feelings make other people upset at me, my feelings make other people make fun of me or mock me. And now, as that child, if this has only happened to you once or twice in your life, then those messages probably won't stick to you. But if these are the kind of messages you received as a child, as an adolescent, so we're talking the first 20, 25 years of your life, then those messages start to become an identity. And that identity is, I am not allowed to be all of me in the world. Because when I am, these are the bad things that happen. People get upset with me. They leave me. They reject me. They betray me. They mock me. So I need to store away those wounded parts of me, those parts that make other people not like me and not want to be with me, and placate to everyone else so that I am not alone. So that's the message. I am not allowed to be all of me in the world. And then you fast forward into adulthood, and those messages come with us. That identity comes with us until we start addressing the reasons and the origins of that identity. They come with us as we enter into relationships and friendships in adulthood. And those relationships continue to confirm that you are not allowed to be all of you in the world. And the most important relationship this message or belief impacts is the relationship you have with yourself. Because we subconsciously and unconsciously take on that message, that identity, we don't want to ever access those wounded parts of us again, because they remind us of how people won't accept us. So we put those wounded parts into exile. We exile them, put them in a figurative Pandora's box, hopefully never to be seen again. But in reality, this doesn't really work for long, because as humans, we eventually crave to be seen, we crave to be heard, we crave to be known, and that's a natural craving. We become, when we're doing this for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, we become really exhausted by our own acting, by our own inauthenticity. We become exhausted by placating to what others are expecting of us. And until we can have that authentic connection with those parts of us and integrate them into the whole self, we'll never really be able to have that authentic connection with another. And so that's the first part of the book, is learning how to befriend those wounded parts of us, befriend and then express some compassion. When we can do that and we start to heal, and the pain and the hurt starts to subside and get quiet, then it becomes easier to access intuition. And that's the second part of my book. It becomes easier to access that inner intuitive voice, your connection to your soul, your connection with the divine, your connection with your higher self, with God. I don't care what you call it, but it exists within all of us. And it wants to be heard. And it wants to lead your life. And it wants to do things in your highest and best interest. So following intuition is a really cool thing once you learn how to access and trust it. But it is almost impossible to access, let alone trust it, if your wounded parts are exiled and you haven't yet integrated them into your whole self, or haven't yet started your own healing journey. And by the way, this book, let's hold it up here. It's not very big, it's not very thick, so hopefully it's not intimidating. Self-help books can be kind of intimidating and dry, but it's not very long. It is a supplement to therapy. It is not therapy in and of itself. So if you know that you need trauma therapy and you're just, anxious about starting because you know it's going to bring up a lot of pain, this book might be a nice, gentle way of introducing you to that healing journey. Or it's a nice supplement as you're in the midst of therapy and healing, and you just need some extra skills for coping, for feeling empowered in between your therapy sessions. So that's how I see the book. And now I'm going to read from the book a personal healing story of my own. And it's not very long, so don't worry. Following intuition and the wisdom of the body. Fertility specialists, tests, and invasive procedures. After 12 months of tracking my ovulation cycle, resulting in negative pregnancy tests month after month, my gynecologist said it was time for further testing. And since I was in my 30s and not able to get pregnant, and at that time, if you were trying to conceive in your 30s and you had gone 12 consecutive months without a pregnancy, they refer you to fertility specialists. My cycle had been regular without any issues since I was 11, and all I wanted was to experience pregnancy and grow a baby inside me. Was that too much to ask of my reproductive organs? The fertility appointments and tests were not covered by our insurance provider, so it wasn't an option for us. I wasn't sure what to do next until one night I had a dream. In the dream, I was in a hospital room where my father lay dying. I had brought a letter for him. It was a letter of forgiveness and love, not the love of the daughter to her father, but the love of one soul to another who is suffering in their human form. In the dream, I knew I was well loved by my chosen tribe and understood my father to be isolated, alone, and unloved by the ones he had abused and or neglected. So dream me, or my higher self, knew I could afford to extend a little compassion to him as he lay there dying. In that moment, our souls were equally loved. Let me put a pin in that for a moment to disclose to you that when I was a child, my father sexually abused me. By the time I was trying to get pregnant, I hadn't seen or spoken to him in 10 years. I had done years of therapy to be emotionally free of my childhood abuse and thought I was done healing from it. Apparently, I was not done. When I awoke from that dream, I knew that there was a correlation between my father, my abused childhood, and my inability to get pregnant. That's the intuitive hit I received. I knew I had to see him. It wasn't logical, but my intuition just knew, and my body felt calm with this idea. This didn't sit too well with my tribe. Why do you need to see him? Why do you want to open up that can of worms? Why would you create that kind of stress for yourself? Indeed, why would I? Our tribe of friends and loved ones want the best for us and don't want to see us in pain, but sometimes the painful path is the one we have to take in order to be fully free. And when you're desperate for answers or healing, you'll do just about anything to get it. I wanted to have a baby, and and I knew on some intuitive level that I had to take this path to see my father. At this point in time, my father was in his late 70s, living in a rehabilitative group home of sorts. I don't know if it was for financial reasons, medical, or both. He suffered from complications of type 2 diabetes, emphysema, and poverty. Seeing him in this state was surreal. I didn't see him as a 78-year-old wheelchaired man his body was clearly exhibiting. I saw him as a throwaway boy during the Great Depression of the 1930s. When my father was 9, his father died, and his mother abandoned him to a boys' orphanage because she couldn't afford to care for him and his older sister. It was during this time in the boys' home that he was sexually abused and physically abused. He ran away at 16 and joined the Navy. He didn't recognize me at first. I'm not sure he would have recognized me at all had my mother not been with me on this visit. He recognized her immediately. Once he realized who I was, he was elated to see us both. At the time, I wondered why I was there. It wasn't clear. He was lost in his abandoned childhood, spewing resentment for his mother. He was lost in the unanswered questions around my brother's severe autism and why the government didn't help us. The government owes us, he'd say. He said that a lot during my childhood. Clearly, he was still lost in his victim state of mind. I felt sorry for him. He was stuck in his past. I was not stuck in mine. That was an aha moment for me. I had done so much work to resolve and neutralize the effects of his abuse on my life. Years of therapy and years of boundaries. All good, all very much worth the emotional and mental agony. After about 20 minutes, Mom and I got up to leave. With his walker, he walked us to the door. Mom gave him a hug. I did not. As I was unlocking my car door, he called out to me. With a very lucid, adult-like tone, he shouted, "Lisha, I'm sorry for everything." And just like Han Solo said to Princess Leia, I replied with, "I know." Facetious? Yes, it was. As much as that acknowledgement should have been a moment of instant forgiveness, it wasn't, because he had apologized before, quite half-heartedly. You can tell when someone is sincere in an apology or when it's just the beginning of a slew of excuses for their bad behavior. His apologies always fell under the latter category. On the drive home, I still questioned why I made that visit. It wasn't clear. What was the point of all that? A few days later, I lay on Donna's massage table. When I had told my female colleagues at work about my challenges with getting pregnant, they told me about this craniosacral therapist in town who gets all the girls pregnant. I didn't hesitate and scheduled an appointment with Donna. When I walked into Donna's home practice, I didn't tell her my story of sexual abuse, the recent dream I had, or the visit I made to see my father. I simply told her I was having trouble getting pregnant. She didn't ask for any more information. I got up onto her table and she started hovering her hands around my body without touching it at first. I understand now that she was using her senses to read my body's energy, like a Reiki practitioner does. And she said, "Oh, yeah, your left ovary seems blocked." And she said that nonchalantly. She then placed her hands at my tailbone and at the base of my head and started to gently rock those areas. The theory behind craniosacral therapy is that the stresses and strains of life can cause tightening and distortion in the craniosacral system. Membranes and cerebral spinal fluid that surround and protect the brain and spinal cord and lead to restrictions. With gentle hand pressure and rocking, you can loosen this energy clog. As a result, experience relief where there was pain. I had my doubts about this working for me, but I was willing to try anything. After some time on her table, tears started streaming down my face, strange and cathartic. With my eyes closed, I could see my reproductive organs, and they were talking to me. "It's okay now, Lisha. We are safe. You are safe, and you can let go." In that moment, I trusted what my body was telling me and knew nothing bad would happen upon releasing that old traumatic energy. It no longer served me. And so I did. I let it go and let God. I cried the trauma out of me. I released it. 2 weeks later, I was pregnant. So I had to share that story because that journey of getting pregnant was the reason why I started working. I was the time that at that time I started working very differently with my clients. So even though I had done years of my own therapy, it was talk therapy mostly. EMDR was not around, other forms of trauma therapy not around at that point. And what I realized when I was going through my pregnancy journey was, oh my goodness, the body really does keep the score, right? As that book, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. My body was still hanging on to that old traumatic energy. And that was a part of me that I needed to address. I thought I had addressed all of it, but I didn't address it on the physical level or really on the soul level. That dream, why did I have that dream? Was that just a psychological coincidence? I have a hard time believing that. So to me, that was my intuition. That was the divine trying to talk to me, trying to send me a message. You need to see your dad and you need to make an appointment and get that energy out of your body. And so I followed all the breadcrumbs, and my son is now 20 years old. Okay, so now I want to walk you through an exercise that is also in my book, and it's called the clearing exercise. And this is an exercise that helps us to learn how to befriend those wounded parts of us in a very gentle, go at your own pace kind of way. So I invite you now. The exercise is in my book, so I am going to read the script for the most part. And I invite you now to let's see, to close your eyes. And let's start off with 5 intentional grounding breaths where you slow down the exhale to about 6 seconds and empty the belly like a deflating balloon. Slowing down the exhale is what accesses and engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which is that part of the nervous system that is grounding and calming. Now I invite you, keeping your eyes closed, I invite you to bring up a recent trigger. It might have been from earlier today, a week ago, a month ago, maybe a year ago. A trigger that you still can't quite shake off. And I invite you to scan your body as you think of that trigger. And you bring up the emotions of that trigger. Go ahead and scan your body and see if you can locate the pain or the discomfort from that trigger in your body. Just notice where it is. Notice the sensations you feel in that area. And also notice if there's a particular size, color, shape, or temperature with that part of you. And now intentionally breathe into the pain, into the trigger. As if you're intentionally breathing life into it. And what do you notice now? What are the emotions behind that pain or trigger? And now intentionally breathe into the emotions. And what do you notice now? And now I invite you to visualize your actual physical heart. Notice how your heart is pumping blood and oxygen through your arteries and into all your organs. But for now, I just want you to focus on how it's sending this energy to that triggered, painful part of you. And just do this for a few moments. As you continue with your intentional breathing and visualizing your heart working, just see the word love. It's not attached to anybody or anything, just the word LOVE. See it traveling with the energy of your heart to that painful, triggered part of you. And do this for a few moments. And now, what do you notice? Ask this part of you, is there a memory or a negative belief, even if it sounds irrational, about yourself associated with it? Is there a memory or a negative belief about yourself associated with it? And just notice that. And notice how young or old this part of you feels. It might be you from a week ago. It might be you from age 10. Just notice. And does this part of you have a message for you? Notice that. And now I invite you to visualize the younger part of you holding on to this pain. See your younger part with eyes of compassion. And what do you notice now? I invite you now to imagine the energy from your heart flowing to the heart of this younger part of you, and then back to your heart like an infinity loop. Imagine the energy from your heart flowing to the heart of your younger part and back to your heart. And what do you notice now? And now offer this younger part or painful part of you an intention of attentiveness, protection, and nurturing. Or if you feel like you aren't capable of that, offer that younger part an intention to learn how to be attentive, protective, and nurturing. And what do you notice now? And now ask if there's a positive statement that goes with this positive feeling. The statement should be short and simple, like, I am safe. I will be okay. I am lovable. I am enough. Just notice what statement organically resonates with you now. And now take a moment to express gratitude for this part of you getting your attention. And whenever you're ready, just slowly open your eyes and come back. If you happen to have, I should have said this at the beginning, if you happen to have something to write with or a piece of paper, or if your phone is nearby and you have a notes app, just take a moment to jot down what you noticed from the beginning of that exercise to the end. And if you feel like sharing, or if you have any feedback about this exercise, what it was like for you, I would love to hear it. Nobody wants to share?
I'd love to share.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Doing those grounding breaths before, and then pinpointing where that trigger is in the body. That was really wonderful. Mine was um above my belly button, and it felt like a hard rock. Um and um throughout the breathing into it and also breathing into the emotions of it, it started to loosen, and I felt like overall I could breathe deeper. So it was very beautiful. Thank you for that.
Good, good. That's excellent. And how does the trigger feel now?
It feels less. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm loving this clearing exercise to put in my toolbox.
Mhm. Good, good. Yes, and that is the whole point of this exercise, is to just feel a little less charge from that trigger, right? It's probably not going to give you any profound healing. Maybe it will if you're supplementing it with therapy, but it's another way of coping with triggers and understanding where triggers come from, because we'll never be trigger free because we can't predict what's going to trigger us all the time. But the more you practice this clearing exercise, the more that you're comfortable befriending those wounded, painful parts of you, it becomes a lot easier to recognize the origin of a trigger. And when you recognize the origin of a trigger, then you don't have a reaction, you have a response, right? You don't have an overreaction, a dramatic reaction, because you just know, like, oh, that's reminding me of when my mother used to call me stupid. Okay, I'm going to set that aside and I'm just going to respond instead of react. And I know it sounds easier said than done. I've had to practice this for years. The book was a 4-year journey. And so prior to writing the book, I had been practicing the clearing exercise. So now I'm at a place where I almost welcome triggers. And I say that very carefully. And I'm going to knock on some wood while I say that, because the trigger, now I recognize a trigger offers me another layer of healing and another layer of freedom. So now when we do this exercise, oh, and by the way, I wanted to say, like, as you were going through the exercise, if you notice like another memory or another trigger popping up, that's fine. See if you can set that aside. Let that part of you know, I will address you after I'm done addressing this. So, because that can happen too, like, oh, all of a sudden there's three memories around the same emotion. So you can always go back and do the clearing exercise, as many times as you need to. And I want to encourage you to make it your own. So in the book, it's scripted out, it's written out, and I shortened it for today's class, but make it your own. You don't have to follow my script, verbatim. If you're good with just the heart flow, seeing your heart flowing to the energy of your younger part, you're good to start from there, then do that. And if that's the way, and you take that away and that's what helps you with every trigger, excellent. Do that. Make it your own. When you make it something your own, you're more likely to do it consistently. Okay. Any questions so far?
No questions, folks. If you're shy, feel free to put them in the chat box.
Yeah. Happy to answer them at the end as well. Now, sometimes people do the exercise and they realize they have zero compassion for a younger part. They even feel anger at the 16-year-old part who made a bad decision and went to a party they knew they shouldn't have gone to, and bad things happened at that party. So as an adult, you might not feel any compassion for that 16-year-old. Okay, so there's another exercise in my book to help you get some compassion for that 16-year-old part of you. And it's called a split screen exercise. So what you do, and you can go ahead and do this right now. Go ahead and close your eyes and imagine a screen. We're not going to split it yet. Just imagine a screen in your mind. And in that screen is somebody you currently love unconditionally. It might be a child, it might be a niece or nephew, and let's keep it human, because it's easy to unconditionally love dogs and cats and all them, but it's a little harder to do it with humans. So let's stick with humans. So it can be a child, any sort of child in your life, or whatever age. It could be your best friend who you unconditionally love. It could be your partner, family member. Just while your eyes are closed, you're imagining seeing them on this screen. And now I want you to imagine them at that age, the age where you made a bad decision and you're angry at yourself for that decision. That age where you started to dislike or started to hate yourself. I want you to see this person you love at that age. And now I want you to see the screen split in two. And on the other side of the screen is you at that age. But for right now, focus on the unconditionally loved one on that side of the screen. And allow the energy of your love to just fill you up. Recognize their pure essence. Notice how unconditional your love is for them. Recognize how it wouldn't be their fault if bad things happen to them. Or recognize that they do deserve forgiveness if they harmed another person. Just allow those feelings of love to just well up inside, to feel it in your cells. Notice what it feels like in your body. And then keeping your eyes closed, now move your eyes back and forth. So move your eyes from your loved one over to you at that age, and then back to the loved one. You're just doing that slowly back and forth. And the reason you're doing this is to allow the feelings of love that you feel for your loved one to just trickle into, to spill over onto the other side of the screen where you're at that age. Allow yourself to see the innocence and naivete in your younger self. And allow yourself to feel even just a little prick of compassion. And when you start to feel that shift with how you feel towards your younger part, then just allow more compassion to spill over onto that side of the screen until it just becomes easier to let go of your anger for that part of you, or the shame, or the resentment. And whenever you're ready, just slowly open your eyes and come back. So I'd love to hear how that exercise was for folks, or if you have any questions.
Feel free to enter in the chat box if you're shy, but you're more than welcome to unmute. I felt my heart chakra kind of um feel like it was vibrating at a higher frequency and just felt a lot of warmth.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. I guarantee you, everybody, that if you spend time with your younger wounded parts with feelings of compassion, that it will get easier to live your life, to have your relationships. It'll get easier to not be so reactive to triggers. It's a journey, as most things are in life, right? When we're trying to grow and trying to learn, it's a journey. And I'm still growing, I'm still learning myself. I still get triggered, but now I have the tools to understand where those triggers come from. And that is my hope for all of you watching today. And, you know, today was a condensed version, obviously, of the clearing exercise and the book. So I hope that today encourages you to purchase the book, or at the very least, encourages you to seek out some trauma therapy for yourself. And for anyone interested, this is my contact information. If you want to get a copy of the book, it's obviously on Amazon or any of your favorite online book retailers like Barnes and Noble and such. So yeah, and I am currently accepting new clients for therapy. I see folks in person. I'm in the north end of Tacoma or virtually. So
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisha. Fabulous presentation. And I appreciate opening your heart to us this evening, and what an amazing journey that you've been on, and that's what's brought you to helping others. And I find that very admirable. So thank you for all you do in the community.
thank you, Elizabeth. And thanks again for letting me be here and giving me a platform to share my work.
Anytime. Oh, and we have oh group. I just forgot how to pronounce her name. It's so pretty. Granier, right? It's Granier. She said, "Thank you so much."
Thank you, Granier. Thank you for being here.
Well, folks, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box, or we have our wonderful presenter here. I'm going